the national level. I'd like you to talk about to what degree subnational ties can help maintain and grow this transatlantic relationship. And let's start with values that you mentioned. The transatlantic relationship has always been held together by a shared set of values: individual liberties, pluralism, equality, rule of law. The U.S. administration is not always adhering to these ideals. But Governor Newsom, as I live in your state, I know that you have not wavered. And I wanted you to talk about how important are these values to you and your constituents, and does it help shore up the transatlantic relationship if California stands up for them?
Well, that's why I'm here. I mean, it's not the rule of law, it's the rule of dawn. And I hope it's dawning on all of you that's the case. It's the law of the jungle. Might makes right. You know, I was interesting, you mentioned Rubio's speech today. I liked it tonally. I liked this notion of Western civilization. If he's referring, in that case, to the best of Roman Republic and Greek democracy, co-equal branches of government, if he's referencing popular sovereignty and the rule of law, I align with his remarks. If it's about an imperialism and an imperial presidency, I don't necessarily.
Today on 45th Perspective, we're taking a closer look at a tense and deeply important Senate hearing where Senator Richard Blumenthal questioned the Director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, about how ICE uses administrative warrants to enter people's homes. This hearing centered on a core constitutional question: are these warrant practices consistent with the Fourth Amendment's protections against unreasonable searches? Before we get into the details, if you're interested in thoughtful, fact-driven political analysis, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting the show on Patreon at patreon.com/45th Perspective. Your support helps keep this kind of independent commentary going.
So I'm here to sort of fill that void and to express what I hope you understand, that Donald Trump is not only temporary, but he may be among the most un-American presidents ever to have resided at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I really believe that. I don't say that lightly. He's an invasive species. He's taken over the Republican Party. You know, I sit every single day in Ronald Reagan's old office. Ronald Reagan was governor of California. Ronald Reagan would be ashamed of this moment in time. You know, Ronald Reagan, whose last speech in the Oval Office was about Lady Liberty's torch, about the energy and daring of newcomers and what defines America from the rest of the globe. Those values are being vandalized in real time. Our republic is being vandalized in real time. This historic project of our founding fathers. It's the 250th anniversary this year. And every day we're fighting the fight to save our republic. I mean, you have leaders that are here that the President of the United States tried to indict. Senator Mark Kelly tried to indict him this last week. A grand jury, 6 members of the United States Congress. He's going after his political enemies. 4,000, I'll conclude. I don't want to take too much time on this. But I want to remember all those images of masked men, the secret police, something familiar in Germany. Those first images came out of my state, the second largest city in the United States of America. We saw 4,000 National Guard federalized. First time, we'd never seen anything like this. And 700 active duty Marines sent not overseas, but to the second largest city in the United States of America, militarizing the streets of my city. Masked men showing up, unaccountable, no ID, smashing windows, dragging people out, people disappearing in the United States of America. 2 people gunned down and killed just recently. It's a long way of saying this. I'm here, you know, because our immune system has been woken up. But so has the American people, and I think increasingly the rest of the world. And I've seen it reflected in Davos. I see it reflected here in Munich in a very positive and powerful way. He exploits weakness. That's his strength. But he responds very differently to conviction, character, purpose, where people are expressing themselves firmly and formally. And I believe that the tone and tenor of Rubio's speech today is reflected in that. It has been reflected in the actions of many European leaders. And I believe Europe feels more united today than it has in some time. And perhaps maybe that is the one contribution of Donald Trump.
The hearing itself was direct, emotional at times, and full of complicated legal arguments. Blumenthal pressed the IC director on situations where agents entered homes using administrative warrants, documents signed by IC supervisory officers rather than judges. The senator highlighted incidents, including one in Minneapolis, where families were startled and frightened as agents entered without what most people would consider a traditional judicial warrant. His point was straightforward. If local police or federal criminal investigators need a judicial warrant to break down a door, why shouldn't ICE be held to that same Fourth Amendment standard? The ICE director pushed back, saying these actions come after a final removal order issued by an immigration judge, and that case law gives ICE the authority to act on administrative warrants under certain conditions. He argued that immigration judges, even though they're part of the executive branch, still provide a legitimate legal basis for enforcement. To him, the administrative warrant isn't a permission slip, as Blumenthal framed it, but part of an established process that has been upheld in the courts. Then things got even more tense when Blumenthal challenged the director's earlier claim that no U.S. citizen is subject to immigration enforcement. He cited several cases where citizens were detained, sometimes forcibly, during immigration operations, raising real questions about accuracy, accountability, and the limits of ICE's authority. The director insisted that these citizens were not subject to removal but acknowledged that they had been detained during operations. Legally, that might be a meaningful distinction. But for ordinary people, the difference between being detained by mistake and being subject to removal isn't always comforting when they're the ones in handcuffs. So what do we make of all this? On one hand, immigration enforcement is undeniably complicated. ICE officers operate in fast-moving situations where they need to locate people who do, in fact, have legitimate removal orders. The agency argues that administrative warrants streamline the process and reflect a civil, not criminal, legal framework, one where the Fourth Amendment applies differently. And there's truth in the idea that immigration enforcement is not identical to criminal policing. On the other hand, the Fourth Amendment is one of the most fundamental constitutional protections Americans have, and it doesn't vanish at the doorstep simply because a different agency is involved. When families experience officers breaking into their homes without a judge's approval, that's going to raise serious concerns, regardless of the legal technicalities. The real-world consequences matter, especially for mixed-status families or citizens who get caught up in operations by mistake. There's also a broader political context here. Debates over ICE and immigration policy have become intensely polarized, and hearings like this one show why. Supporters of stricter enforcement want ICE to have the tools to carry out removal orders efficiently. Critics argue that giving the agency too much discretion leads to abuses, constitutional overreach, and fear in immigrant communities. The challenge for policymakers is finding a balance between enforcing existing laws and ensuring those laws are carried out in ways that respect the rights of everyone, including U.S. citizens and mixed-status families. My own take is that transparency and oversight matter just as much as enforcement authority. If ICE believes administrative warrants are appropriate, the public should understand why and how they're used. And if mistakes are being made, those need to be acknowledged openly and corrected. The Constitution isn't a suggestion, it's the framework that holds all of this together. As always, I want to hear from you. What do you think about the arguments raised in this hearing? Do you believe ICE should be required to get judicial warrants to enter homes? Or do you think the current system is justified by immigration law? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments.